Sea of Stars. Bro, what the f? During this hectic period of game releases that ranges basically from around July maybe until December, especially in the AA to AAA gaming space, indie titles usually have a somewhat rough ride in getting attention pulled away from the bigger budget releases happening during the same time period. Sea of Stars as a game has been slowly gaining momentum due to it being a spiritual sequel prequel to a popular game called The Messenger. And while most of the gaming space basically revolves around titles like Baldur's Gate, Starfield, Armored Core 6 and others, because of the fact that, well, they pay the most in advertising, so that's all we get to see as consumers. The hype around Sea of Stars is somewhat different though. I mean, even with subscription service fatigue that's full on happening at the moment, on top of the price hikes happening, having the game release on both the PS Plus ecosystem as well as Game Pass on day one was a stroke of absolute genius from this company. With a wave of great reviews for Sea of Stars, it kind of forcefully gets you to look at it, right? So of course I had to jump into this with zero expectations or knowledge really on what the game is, how it plays, or well, what the fuck it actually is. No pun intended. So let's get into the premise of the game. Now off the bat, you get the choice of playing with either the moon-powered Famale, aka female Valir, or the sun-powered brochacho named Zale. As their look implies, one has sun powers and the other has moon powers. There's also the obvious difference of male or female, or heavy attacks with a staff, or fast attacks with a curved sword, or scimitar? Well, I have no idea how to say that, so don't judge me. This is not the be-all end-all choice though. It's not like one of those games where the whole story and experience is different based on the character you pick. Instead, it's more of a pick your own party leader kind of choice. Anyway, you start the game off by coming up on a trail with your broski in crime, and you go through the tutorial of the game that shows off some bare bones combat mechanics of basically wait for your turn and then attack. I mean, that's how turn-based games usually work. This one, however, has some interesting mechanics that we'll get into in a bit, so bear with me. You make your way through the short tutorial to a campfire from which you start reminiscing on the good old times of before you ended up, well, at the campfire. You jump back 10 years to yourself and your celestial sibling, as well as a third party member named Garl, who's the kind of cook slash comedic relief of the group. The two young children of Solstice make their way to a forbidden cave where after some shit goes down, Garl loses his eye, and then the two of you are sent to a school where, well, long story short, you practice knitting for 10 years. And I wish that was a joke, but it's not. Play the game and find out. Now 10 years go by and you're ready to take on the trials, where as a result you'll be able to weave magic without using magic, which sounds really weird, but bear with me on this one. You go through the game a bit further and voila, you're back at the campfire. Garl jumps out of the berry bush behind you and joins the party yet again. The three of you set off to take this final exam of sorts. Now during this final exam, you're met with some further gameplay mechanics. You get to use this charge mechanic that can be used in a variety of ways really. That is, when you smack the enemy during your turn, they sometimes shoot out these energy orbs around you and you can then suck them up and use them to your leisure. This charge ability can be used to either boost your healing or attack spells in your arsenal, and any one character in the party can hoover these energy orbs up and use them to his or her tactical advantage. So there's this tactical side to the game where you have to kind of calculate on who needs it the most based on which action you need to pull off the most. Also, as we are on the topic of combat, there's this absolutely awesome roulette style attack pattern that interrupts enemy heavy attacks. At some points during these fights, and especially useful in boss fights, you get the sequence of attacks kind of indicator that is needed to stop an enemy from doing a heavy attack. Now these do quite a lot of damage if they happen, so it's important that you be on the lookout for them and get the sequence right to save some health. There's also this additional attack mechanic that doubles as a defense mechanic that's based on timing really. When either attack connects and you press the necessary button, it can, depending on the situation, work as a double attack offensively or to reduce damage taken defensively. All of a sudden it's not such a simple game anymore now, is it? Now the game throws it out there that you shouldn't stress too much on this timing mechanic, but bro, fuck all that. Stress to your heart's content. You need this. You don't want to be missing out on either like half damage taken or double damage dealt, especially not in this game where the difficulty is not as easy as you might initially think. At the end of your trial, you fight this boss that tests your mettle and everything you've learned and hopefully mastered so far, and boy, oh boy, that was a fight, let me tell you. From there, after finally beating the boss in only 15 tries, you set out into the world and realize there's a bunch of game yet to be played. Now I won't get into too much further detail on what happens afterwards because, well, you should figure it out by yourself by playing it, but I will say this. It was way more emotional than I originally thought. There's a few twists and turns along the way. You meet new companions to fit into your party as well as new abilities to schmack mobs with. Boss fights are awesome as well, with nice settings and some cool mechanics to them. They provide a decent enough challenge for the unprepared broskies out there, so be sure to constantly be resting whenever available, collecting ingredients around the world, and cooking some delicious looking pixelated grub. There's other mini games like fishing as well, which you can do every now and then, but the mechanics aren't really all that well explained on how to properly fish. I feel like it was more a trial and error type of mini game than actually explained. It could be that I just missed the explanation, as I do tend to skip a lot of tutorials. There's also some light puzzles in the game along the journey, and depending on how up to the task you are at any given moment of your gaming session, they could be very easy or frustratingly difficult to get through. Now, speaking of pixels, you know that subscribe button down below? It's made of pixels. Try pressing it to see what happens. See what I did there? Jokes aside, if you like the content so far, please do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It would help me out so much. Oh my god. As equivalent exchange works in general, you subscribe to the channel and I give to you mediocre humor at the very best and the vibes, broski. Anyway, let's get back to the review. Ching. Anyway, pixels bring us to art style and graphics of the game, and man does this game look good, right? I'm sure you've thought that already just by watching this video, and bro, let me tell you, the further you get into this game, the better looking it gets. The different biomes and environments stand on their own in both the overworld, where you spend a big chunk of time exploring, as well as the more intimate dungeons and zones where you get to do some schmacking. The boss designs are super nice throughout, apart from maybe the first boss that's basically just a big ass caterpillar, as well as maybe some of the smaller mobs in the game that don't really look all too special. But anyway, the food looks absolutely delicious. I can't get over that. Like I mentioned earlier, I can't get enough of the food pixel porn, man. It's just great. It all comes together to make this charming yet surprisingly emotional experience, with a story worth the time it takes for people with ADHD like myself to read the text boxes. It has a world that is begging to be explored to satisfy the loot-hungry goblin that lives inside all of us, and an art style that is unique enough to stick with you after the credits roll. Is it worth your time though, with all the games releasing or have been released lately? Bro, how the fuck should I know? I was only here to tell you my thoughts on the game, my impressions, and whether I liked it. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Anyway, that pretty much wraps it up for me for this review yet again. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to click that like button down below, my bro chachos. Subscribe to the channel as well. It would really help me out a absolute ton. We're on the road to the greatness of the tubes. Also, comment down below on if this game is on your list to be played either now or later. Let me know in the comments down below. Let's start a conversation. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day wherever you're from, whichever time of day you watch this at. I'll see you guys in the next upload. Peace be with.